Right, so today we're making a loaf of plain white bread. It's a very simple recipe that doesn't take much effort and produces really nice results. So what you can need for this is you can need 500 grams of strong white bread flour, 7 grams of fast action yeast, about 300 mils of water, but you can always add a bit more, a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt. You also need a bit more flour for dusting later, but that comes in a bit. First, you're going to take yeast and add it into your flour. You can mix that all together. I'm just using a knife because I don't want to get my hands dirty at this stage, but you will get your hands in there at one point. Next, you're going to add a little bit of salt. Not much, but just a pinch. There we go. Again, you can mix that through. You're then going to make a little well in the middle, if possible. You grab your olive oil. Or not, if you don't have olive oil. And then you're going to add your water. And then start mixing that all together. So once it starts to come together, if it's like this, if it's sort of forming but it's not all coming together, you can always add a little bit more moisture. Try not to add too much time so as not to get a soup, but remember you can always add more, but you can never take it out once it's in there. Start forming this all together into one dough ball. Okay. So this is definitely very dry and could probably use with a tiny bit more water, but not much at this point. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more. It's probably not enough. We'll see. So I'll keep forming it together into one sort of cohesive ball of dough. It'll be sort of shaggy mass at this point. It'll all turn out fine in the end. And once you have a relatively shaggy mass, what you want to do is push this over to the side and get a little bit more flour. And sprinkle it over your work surface. Then you want to turn this out onto the surface. And then from there you just want to bring it all together and knead it for about a solid 10 minutes. Or just until it all comes together in a sort of satin smooth, doughy ball. So this is still really dry, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water to it, not much. Just enough to hopefully bring together everything. as one ball so that it can go to rise. So it's starting to become a little bit sticky, so what you can do is either pull out some more flour from the bowl or just sprinkle a little bit more flour from the bag on top. You want to keep working this together until you have a very nice dough. So we'll come back when that's the case. Right, so once you've got your dough kneaded out in a nice ball, what you can do next is bring your bowl back, pull this up. What you want to do is normally lay this in a little bit of a lightly oiled bowl so it doesn't stick, but doesn't help when you don't have olive oil, but we'll make do. We'll just dust a little extra flour in the bottom of the bowl. Then from there, sit that in there and cover with a tea towel and set in a warm place to rise for about an hour. So we'll come back when that's done. So now that the bread has risen for about an hour, and has risen in size, doubled in size, what you want to do is you want to knock it back. So you want to pull all the air out of it and fold it in on itself. One of the things you probably can't see but has happened is that it's taken on a smoother texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully pull it out. This is why you should always grease your bowls. Out. Okay, so once you've liberated your dough from its bowl, if you haven't greased up the bowl, otherwise it should come out a lot easier than that. You're going to take the dough and... crap. Right, always remember to flour surfaces first, so you don't get this happening. Man. This is why you should either like flour your hands first or just be a lot more gentle with it. There we go. Right, there we go. Take a little bit more flour and rub it over my hands, over the bread. And do your best to prevent the dough from sticking to your work surface. What you want to do is mould the dough into a sphere or a ball, whatever shape you want it to be. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to form it into a nice little ball. Then from there, you want to grab a baking tray lined with greaseproof paper, and then you want to take your dough, you want to very carefully place it in the centre, cover it with a tea towel for another hour before baking. So we'll come back when that's done. So after you've let the bread rest for another hour on the baking tray, it will have not risen as much. If it's on the baking tray, it will probably flatten out a bit. If it's in the tin, it will probably stay the same. This is fine, so what we're going to do is we're going to grab a tiny bit more flour. We're going to dust the top of the bread with a tiny bit more flour. Then from there, we're going to have the oven preheated to gas mark 7. We're just going to take a knife, preferably a sharp one. I'm just going to cut across on top of the bread. Go in the wash. Then from there, we're just going to put it in the oven for about half an hour, or until it is nice and golden brown on the top and it sounds hollow when tapped from underneath. So we'll see you when that's the case. Right, so once you've had your bread in the oven, it should have got a nice golden colour on the top, and if you very carefully flip it over and give it a tap on the bottom, it sounds hollow inside, which means it's cooked all the way through. So what you can do then is get a wire rack, put the bread on it to cool before eating it, because you don't want to burn yourself, and you have a lovely golden loaf of white bread all done by yourself.